Hey, welcome to Mind Your Own Biz, the podcast where we help small business owners with big dreams build something authentically you. I'm Alicia Yervis, educator, marketer, designer, nacho enthusiast, and your big sister in business. I'm excited for us to have this cozy spot to chat. Each episode, we'll tackle candid conversations, actionable tips, and a few fun tangents to help you run your business your way. Because business is always personal, no matter what anyone says. So grab your iced coffee or those nachos, and let's get started. Hey there, and welcome to Mind Your Own Biz. My name's Alicia Yervis. I'm your host, and I am really looking forward to this chat today. I really have an awesome guest for you. So you know how storytelling and connection are everything in business, right? You've heard me say it before, how showing up as your true self can attract the right people. Meaning, when you are yourself in your business and your marketing and what you put out there, you attract those kindred spirits, the folks who light you up, the folks you want to work with, the folks you want to collaborate with, right? They match your energy, you vibe with them. You're like, yes, this is who I want to work with. And one of the ways we can do that very effectively is through video. And I have been admiring my guest's work for a long time. And there's so much to talk about in getting you to think about the topic of video in a different way and just how powerful it can really be. I'm so excited to share this convo, so I'm not going to spend too much time with an intro because I want to get right into the conversation. So today's guest is Mariana Henninger, a 2 times nominated Emmy-winning filmmaker and the founder of brandmagnetic.com. After years of telling powerful stories for big brands and news outlets around the world, she pivoted into entrepreneurship to help values-driven business owners like you stand out and connect through the power of personal, emotion-driven brand videos. She's absolutely obsessed with emotional marketing and specializes in helping online business owners create instant, personal, and emotional connection and increase conversions using a 2 to 3 minute brand video. We're in a bunch of the same circles, and I've been following Mariana's work for a bit, and I just can't wait for you to meet her because what she does is so aligned with what we're talking about here on this podcast and in my brand. Business your way with a lot more you into the mix. So I'm very happy and excited to welcome Mariana Henninger. So, hey, my friend, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I love your setup. Your lighting is excellent. I really love how that looks, especially how we get to see the Emmy behind you, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Love that. So, Mariana, thank you so much for being here. I just covered briefly in the beginning of the episode a little bit from your bio and your background. So impressive, so much to talk about. But I said to my listeners, like, I want to jump right into the conversation because we have so much to cover here today.
Yeah.
So before we start talking about what you offer and the amazing things that you can do and all the great ideas that you have, can you walk us through a little bit from your journey from Emmy-winning journalist or Emmy-winning filmmaker to brand video queen? Like, how did you know it was time to pivot into entrepreneurship as well?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question. I was a documentary filmmaker for about 15 years. I definitely was a journalist. So journalist was one of my titles.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'd had a dream career. I'd been able to go around the world telling stories, really dive into things that I thought were really personal and intimate, and being able to tell a bigger national story or international story through somebody's specific life and their experience. I talk about that in my brand video. I always like to do something a little crazy, which is if you're listening to this, which you are, you can take a quick pause from this podcast and hop on over to brandmagnetic.com/Mariana. You can watch my brand video in about 2.5 minutes and come back to us because then you're going to see it. But watching a brand video will make this conversation so much more enlightening.
Yes.
But to answer your question, Alicia, how did I know it was the right time to jump in? Oh man. I think it was when I realized that I had been a closeted entrepreneur my whole life, and I had always wanted to do more, not have to ask permission to do things, I had negotiated a raise at NBC, which was my last job, for about a year. It took me a whole year to negotiate it. It was a massive raise, but it was a long time. And after that experience, I remember telling myself, like, I'm never going to do this again. I
Mm,
never want to spend this much time and energy having to prove that I'm worth this much money.
mm,
And with that came, I think that was like the first seed that was planted inside of me, like how hard it was to get that raise. That I knew that it was sort of the beginning of the end of my time as an employee.
mhm,
And then, fate, whatever you want to call it, destiny, made it so that my last boss that came in sort of towards the end of my time at NBC, we just didn't see eye to eye in terms of how she wanted to run the team. It was a lot more restricting than what I had been used to. And, I think that I deliver really well when I'm not giving a ton of constraints.
mhm,
And I think a lot of creatives might be able to identify with that. And so, I understand that I was on, NBC's dime, and I understand that I had to work with other people in the company. None of that bothered me, but there were definitely just like new rules that were kind of being put in place. So I was like, I think my dream job is coming to an end here, and that's okay.
mm, mhm.
And honestly, that was more than okay. It was exactly what I needed to feel uncomfortable in that nest and to jump the coop, fly the coop, and spread my wings and build my own empire.
Hmm. I love that. And you're so right about when we are not restricted, we produce better, we perform better, we we have more fun, like all of those things I can super relate to. I was blessed in the last job I had before I started my own business, was at a theater here in New Jersey called Two River Theater, in Red Bank. And God bless them. They were very much like, just do your thing.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah.
that was great. But of course, yeah, there's rules. We work in a, we work with other departments, other people. Like, I totally relate to all of that. But I love that you were like, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I'm not going through this again, and I'm gonna make my own rules. Like, that's just the absolute best. And, talking about that past career and how you've built your own thing, you've built your own platform, your own brand. What's something untraditional about how you run your business now that really works well for you?
Oh man. Hmm. I don't know how untraditional this is, but the thing that's coming to mind is that I'm really ruthless about keeping my costs down.
Mm,
And I was just having a conversation with a online business friend of mine who I actually brought into the online space. She's a documentary filmmaker herself, and now she has a course on cinematography. And she was just kind of going through her numbers and realizing that, like, wow, all of these major expenses had really eaten into her profit margins over the last year and a half. And I feel like I've been absolutely ruthless about that.
hmm,
In fact, I gravitate toward mentors that sort of have built big businesses on very small teams,
hmm,
sometimes on part-time help. I know, Gemma Bonham Carter is somebody I'm a huge fan
hmm.
of, and her entire team right now, as of this recording, is 4 contractors,
Yeah.
part-time contractors. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And
Hmm.
so I don't know how, like, I think people build their online business in all sorts of different ways. It means that
Yeah.
I'm definitely spending a lot of time in my business now. And I feel like in the future, I want to be able to spend less time in my
Sure.
business.
Yeah.
I pour a lot of my life into my students and my work right now, in part because, as much as I feel like I'm successful in this business, it still feels foundational in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
And so the idea that I've been able to build, and honestly, this is what attracted me to online businesses in the first place. It's a lot of, folks that are doing the hard work and building things from scratch without needing massive funding, without relying on fundraising and donors or angel
Yeah.
investors and things like that. I
Hmm.
really love that about the online space. And so I've been able to find talent in hidden places. I've been able to find a way, for example, with our brand video signature clients, which are high end, sort of done for you brand videos. I have a team that edits overseas, and they get the video till like 80%, 85%. And then
Hmm.
I have a team of really high end editors that cost me a fortune. And they're not overpaid, but
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
relation to the two
Sure.
costs, they're quite higher.
Yeah.
But they're also at a very high level. They edit trailers for Netflix and HBO and all of these
Hmm.
high end clients. And so they can also, they basically take that brand video and they like whip it into shape at the last minute and like
Yeah.
really bring that energy, that punch that we need with a brand video. And so
Yep.
I think that's quite unique. I don't know anybody else that's, able to sort of hire contractors from different parts of the world and
Yeah.
make it work.
hmm
Things like
It's
that I
like,
think are fascinating.
it's very cool because, well, first of all, I love what you said about, look, I'm trying to keep my costs down. Like I'm doing this on my own. Like I have to watch, every penny. I totally relate to that. I appreciate that you say that too, because I also think lots of folks who, maybe they're a new business or maybe they are opening their eyes to things that they think they should be doing, and they can take off
Mm.
like a runaway train with
Oh
expenses.
yeah.
I've got to get this app and this platform and this subscription and this thing, and I've got to hire these people and this, and it's just like, hold on. Like, let's really think about what
Right.
we can do ourselves to keep the cost down in the moment so that we can grow. And
Mhm.
then down the line, what can we do by outsourcing certain things or, automating certain things? But also with what you said about the different teams for the different purposes. I love that. So it's kind of like you're sending out like the rough stuff to the international team to kind of get you a really good rough draft, and
Mhm.
then you're like sending it to your fine tuners, like your
Right.
the
They're the ones
folks who
putting
are
it
good.
the icing on the cake, I guess. Like they
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
be like
yeah.
real, real good at it.
Yeah, that I love that. That's a very unique process, so I love that. Before we talk about what a brand video is and all
Hmm.
of that, I do want to touch on your Emmy. Can you tell us, what did you win your Emmy for?
Yeah, for sure. So my Emmy was won for a 10-minute documentary that started as a 40-minute documentary, which shows the
Okay.
power of like less is more,
hmm
take out the fat, like just make it punchier. And
hmm
anyway, so I wanted to submit a 40-minute doc, and my boss at the time, very rightly so, was like, nope, cut, trim, go back.
Yeah.
And so the story was this man whose mother had dementia, and he had started kind of documenting what that meant
Mm.
with a GoPro. And one of his videos had gone viral on YouTube. And the video specifically was the day that she had forgotten who he was, and
Oh,
he like breaks
wow.
down. And so obviously like this touched a lot of people, millions of
hmm
people watched it. And so I was brand new at NBC at the time. This was the second story I worked on while I was there for 5 years.
hmm
And so the reporter who brought me the story brought me exactly what I just told you. And, you know, I think what everyone covered when this video went viral, he was on different news stations and like, different journalists interviewed him. And it was always about that story of his mom
hmm
forgetting who he was. And what I saw when I started like watching all his videos and kind of really studying it, to me, the untold story was his version of it, in the sense that it
hmm
was the toll that it was taking on him. And
Gotcha.
what's the role of the caretaker? Obviously, dementia is such a horrific disease. We
Yeah.
think a lot about the patients and the people suffering through it, and we kind of tend to pay less attention on the toll of the family members and the caretakers and all of these people who are left to like distort their own lives and sort of accommodate and love and care for and process this whole horrific thing that's happening.
hmm
And so I could just see that there was a lot of it that he wasn't sharing. He was kind of a guarded man, um and anyway, through a lot of time and persistence in building that relationship, I was able to. Anyway, it's a 10-minute doc. I hope if you're curious about it, I don't want
Yeah.
to like spoil it. You
hmm
can find it at marianahenninger.com, which is like all of my documentaries are there,
Okay.
or a good amount of them.
hmm
And I don't want to spoil the rest, but that's what the
Okay, we're
story is
gonna
about.
watch it. That's awesome. I love that you were new there, kind of like working on one of your first couple projects. That's so exciting. That's awesome. And I also relate so much to what you were saying about like editing yourself, and that can be
Mm.
tough. Like I struggle with that too, like, the big fat red pen and ki killing your darlings and all of
Yes.
that. Like I get it.
You know it.
Yeah. So, okay. What the heck is a brand video?
Yes.
And why is it magic? Like you had described it as a movie trailer for your business. So can you explain to us what that means?
In some very simple terms, a brand video is a 2 to 3 minute video that tells your story in a way that accelerates trust with your audience. And we know that by accelerating trust, you accelerate sales. So that's the short of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the very next question I usually get asked after that is, where does it live? How do I use it? And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like answering that question helps you understand how it works.
Sure.
So a brand video lives top of funnel, which means that every single person that comes into your world, whether
Mm-hmm.
they end up on your email list or they're not quite there, um, they reach out to you over email, they should watch your brand video. It is the biggest ROI that you will ever have in a single piece of video. You
Mm-hmm.
spend a decent amount of time creating it because it really, I push my students to go deeper and to like, we don't stay at surface level for a reason. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
the promise is that this video is going to accelerate trust, then it needs to be not your average video. It's definitely not a marketing video in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that there's no call to action. You should feel like I've watched this video and now I know Alicia really well. I feel like I know what makes her tick, but she's made me feel something and I feel very
Mm-hmm.
connected to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so it lives pinned on your social media profiles. It lives on your homepage if you are the face of your brand, on your About Me page, which is the second most visited page on most websites. People
Yep.
want to know who you are. So that's where your brand video should live, also on your email signature, on your welcome sequence, on your
Mm-hmm.
sales page, but more towards the bottom, where there's like a little reminder of like, this is why you should buy from me, or like, this
Mm-hmm.
is why I'm the right person for this offer that I'm giving you right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of other ninja ways. I teach about 25, 30 different ways to teach or to use the brand video. And those are
Mm-hmm.
the kind of the top ones.
Well, it's funny because you're definitely walking the walk because as we were emailing about this episode, I saw it right there in your email signature. And I've seen it lots of other places. And yeah, it's like if it's that one big fat piece of collateral that, you put everywhere,
Yes.
I would imagine that for folks who create one of these with you, they then have to get into the habit of like, okay, I have this asset, like I need to plaster it everywhere and just kind of understand, the best places to put that.
Yeah.
Because what I see happen a lot of times, and this has even happened with one of my clients, they didn't create a brand video per se, but they hired a video team to film them in their office, doing some work, engaging with clients and stuff like that. And it cost a pretty penny to do
Mhm.
that. And I didn't know, and they kind of just plopped it in one random page on one
Mm.
random portion of their site. They never put it on social. They never emailed about it. They don't have it on their homepage. They don't have it on Google. They don't have it anywhere. And it
Mm.
was several months later that I found out that they had it. And I was like, like this should be everywhere. And that wasn't even a brand video. But I'm saying, like,
Mhm. Yeah.
when you have this beautiful piece created, like you want to get it everywhere.
Yeah.
And so to kind of talk about that a little bit, for someone who is maybe just starting to show more of themselves in their business. If they're thinking about this idea of, okay, I understand what Mariana's saying, like, I get it. I watched the video, I paused and I went and watched her video. I get how this can make a real big impact. How can they begin to kind of, maybe be a little less nervous about this idea?
I think it's just turning your mindset around in that your brand video is actually not about you.
Hmm.
Your business is not about you.
Right.
You're there to serve people, to help them get the results that you promise. Obviously, you want to do that in a way that feels good, that feels aligned, that allows you the freedom that you're likely looking for when you started the business in the first place. But at the end of the day, if you make your business about yourself, you're not going to go very far. You
So
really
true.
need to make it about the people you're helping. You have to be so passionate about helping them that it doesn't matter that you don't look great that day. It doesn't matter
Hmm.
if you have a few extra pounds or you wanted to
Hmm.
gain weight or whatever. You don't look as trimmed up as you might. I definitely need a haircut. Here I am showing up
Me
anyway.
too. Yep.
So
Yep.
like it truly doesn't matter what you think about yourself. It
Hmm.
matters how you're showing up to serve others. And so your brand video is no different in that it's not about telling your story. It's about helping people feel a certain way. That is the only purpose of the brand video, is to help them feel trust, help them feel ready to take the next step, help them to feel sold on you as the person that they want to work with to achieve the results that you're promising. Like, they have so many different options. We have so many options nowadays to work with anyone to achieve results XYZ. Why should they choose you? It's because of how you've made them feel. Ideally, you can compound that, or like, that's what we do, is we fit that into the story that you tell in your brand video. We do that through emotional visuals as well, that really help you, kind of go on this journey of your story and not just receive information with some B-roll.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's ultimately not about us. And that's such a freeing thing to wrap your head around. The more you realize that you're there to serve, you're there, like, what excites you is not how good you look on camera, it's how awesome the results are that you get for people. Then hopefully quickly you'll kind of get rid of that mindset of like, oh, I don't feel confident on camera. Like, just pretend you're talking to a friend.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say too that, and like, what I find is very often when we are trying to think through who we want to work with, what clients do we want to hire us, and, who lights us up and who we vibe with and all that stuff. Very often, like, our ideal client is ourselves, a couple years ago or something like that. And so I would imagine that when folks are creating these brand videos with you, it's also an opportunity for the viewer to see themselves in the person.
Absolutely.
And have that connection and relation, like, oh, I went through that same struggle, or yes, that's me, like, she's talking to me. So I really understand how that can be super powerful. And I want to talk about your process too with your clients in a minute, but before we get into that, what would you say most people get wrong when trying to build that trust online, whether it's with video or not, but especially with video?
I think they oftentimes don't go deep enough. And so I talk about, you have to hit the 4 trust triggers. They are, people should feel that I get you. They should feel that I care about you wholeheartedly. And let me go back to number 1. If they need to feel that I get you, then you have to understand them really well, better than they know themselves. So this is like a marketing concept that's not new to me or new to what I do, but the reason it's part of my process is because it works and because it's incredibly important. So they should feel that you get them on a very deep level, that you care about them. I often reference, there's so many coaches online nowadays that love to, show their Stripe bank accounts and yada, yada. And I'm like, I don't want to be a number on your Stripe bank account. Like, that's not how I do business. That's not how I treat my clients. And so I want to feel like I am an individual who's actually cared for if I join your program, that, depending different levels, right? If it might be a low ticket mini course, I don't expect the same level of care, if you will, as if I bought a $10,000 mastermind. But if I ask a question, or if I have some sort of trouble, I want a response. I want to be respected. And if I'm investing more, I want that kind of attention. I've been burned before. In fact, that was a really eye-opening experience for me. It was a very helpful experience, because now I can speak to people who have been burned by investing so much in programs that promise that care, that promise that intention. All right. So I get you. I care about you. I've got you, which is where the expertise comes in. And so many times we focus most of our marketing around this one thing, which is the expertise. Like, why me? Because I'm the expert, because look at my credentials, look at my testimonials, look how great I am at this. Even if we're phrasing this in kind of the story brand way of making it about them, and if we're relying just on our credentials and our expertise, it's still one of the 4 trust triggers. It's not the whole thing. And the other 3 are just as important. The 4th one is that we vibe together. This is where personality comes in. This is where, like, the likability factor comes in. The idea that, do I actually want to hang out with this person? Do I see them as somebody that I like to be around? And I use the word friend sometimes, but I also know that, being friend zoned is not a good thing in business. So, you don't want to be seen as the peer friend at the same level. And this is why it's a whole other topic, but I talk about how being relatable is actually not always a good thing in business. but relating to them and being able to speak to them is the right thing. Anyway, if I'm relating to you and you're in the trenches, like I'm in the trenches, why would I pay? Like, you're not further ahead than me, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so
I
anyway,
see.
so those are the 4 trust triggers that I talk about and I feel like the most common mistake that business owners make is that they kind of stay surface level, or they're just not sure. A lot of folks are just not sure what part of their story to tell, how to tell it. They're kind
Mm-hmm.
of hoping it sticks. They're hoping it works. So many people write their About Me page without knowing what they're doing, and just like it feels weird to write in the third person, and they kind of get it over with, and then they
Mm-hmm.
never look at their About Me page again. So
Mm-hmm.
just not having that certainty that what you're going to share about your story is actually going to connect with someone, actually going to help them trust you and see you differently right there and then. I talk a lot about the importance of having your brand video top of funnel the moment they meet you, because generating those feelings is going to impact their experience every single time you show up again. So
Mm-hmm.
from the business owner's perspective, that creates a lot more impact for every single time. We get a lot more bang for our buck when we show up, and
Yeah.
people are already receptive to us because we've created that relationship and that trust
Mm-hmm.
right away.
I love everything that you just said because um, I was just going to ask, like, well, how does someone decide what to share, what
Mm,
to say? How do they even know what their story is? Even though they might know it in their brain, they went through it, it's like you're a storyteller, you're a filmmaker, you know what those marks are and how to tie it together. Like the example you were sharing about your Emmy win and how you found that thread to tell it in a unique way. That obviously had an amazing result. And also really affected people and touched people and, had them paying attention. So
mm.
when you talk about magnetic storytelling and emotional marketing, how do you identify how they might structure that video? And I know you
Yeah.
have a program and I want to talk about that too, but for someone who's just kind of opening their mind to this idea, could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, we go a lot more deeply in the program, but
Sure.
the sort of high level is that you need to first identify whether you have an overcome story or a passion story. And
Mm,
everyone will fall into either one of those, not to be confused with the fact that they're both actually passion story. You should be passionate about what you do either way. But
hmm
the biggest difference between the main difference is that you have an overcome story when you've overcome something that you help your clients overcome. And so it's when your story more closely aligns with theirs in the sense of, this was my before, something happened, and this is my after, right? And this is the simple story arc that I teach is literally like 4 or 5 steps. It's not a hero's journey.
Okay.
It's not what Lord of the Rings, the guide and the obstacles and this and that. Blah, it's too much. We're
hmm
keeping it down to 2-3 minutes. So it's literally there's a hook, there's your life before, something happens, your life after, and then I have what I call a pivot to the mission, which is what makes this not a marketing video, but helps people kind of know what's next.
Okay.
So it's not a call to action, but it helps them understand or connect what you experience with what you do, with what your business is.
hmm
It's kind of like an inevitable thing, like because I lived through this, now I do this, right?
hmm
And so that's the overcome story. The passion story focuses on what are the parts of your story, or which stories can you tell that highlight the parts of your personality that people most connect with. And so typically these are service providers or folks who are helping someone with something that they didn't like overcome as a challenge themselves. So I had a designer in my program who was obsessed with design, and it's graphic design is what she does, and her agency is all around graphic design. And so we leaned on, okay, so what are the stories from you as a little girl and painting and her inspiration of her dad and things like that, that help people see how obsessed you are with this, how passionate
hmm
you are about this, how much you love doing this, how much this comes easily to you. So in a way, I have a passion story. My brand video is a passion story. So if you watch that, you'll see that in action.
hmm
What I focused on, and this goes for both, when you are looking at, we do an exercise in my program called story banking. And that's where we write out all sorts of possible stories that we could tell that would fit into these criteria.
Okay.
What you're looking for is what are the stories that are going to have the most impact emotionally and that most resonate with your audience, right? So we understand through a whole process of what they need to feel. What does trust feel like for them? And then we look at those stories and identify which stories are going to create those feelings, basically. So I'm really dumbing it down, but or simplifying it really.
Yeah.
But the idea is to be able to look at all the possible stories that you could tell and identify which ones are going to generate certain feelings or the feelings that you actually want to generate. And then there are a couple other criteria, you know, like we're looking for stories that are visual versus stories that are really boring, or they all happen, you know, if they happen in the past, are these stories that we can kind of use different visuals to illustrate or to ideally, you know, I call them emotional visuals because B-roll is just literally something you slap on top of sound. Whereas we really look at visuals as actual characters in our story.
Interesting. I love that. I relate a lot to, well, first, before I get to that, let me say, I think it's really interesting that even though you have all these different folks who you work with from all different types of businesses, all different walks of life and everything, you are still using the same formula. Like there is a formula there to pull together the completed piece. It's kind of like you're reverse engineering, like based on what you're wanting the feeling to be, right? So I love that little magic trick. That's very cool. And something that I hear a lot from my clients, and this is what I was going to say before, I get a lot of students in my program and stuff who are like, you know, I feel like I don't have a story, or my story is too boring. I don't know what makes me interesting. Or the flip side, they think that their story is too messy or too dramatic or
Yeah.
too, you know, scary or something. So what would
Yeah.
you say about someone who might be feeling that way?
Well, almost two different extremes, right? So let me speak to the first one, which is like, you
Sure.
don't think you have a story. Well, you absolutely have a story.
Yeah.
Everyone does. And everyone has a reason. It's not an origin story. Let me correct myself before I even say it. It's not why you got into the business per se. That in and of itself, your origin story is actually typically quite boring. So I might agree with you there in that, you know, if you think that's it, it might not be the best story to tell. In general, I really don't recommend people telling their origin story. I recommend they tell their brand story in the way that I teach it, which is thinking about which parts of your story are going to connect with your audience, are going to make them perk up because it's something that's relatable to them.
Okay.
And so we all have a deep reason or drive that we do what we do. We just have to find what parts of that or how to tell that's going to, it all begins with our audience, right? Alicia, you said the right word, which I use all the time as well. It's all about reverse engineering from them. And so once you understand your audience deeply, the second step is to then know what makes you loved by them. What is it about you that they love, which is very different than your unique selling proposition. It's very different from like your unique things that you like about yourself or that you think make you unique. It's all about what your audience says they love about you, what your clients say they love about you. And so that also plays a role into deciding which parts of your story to tell. And so hopefully you understand that people buy from people for a reason. They buy from people faster and buy more often from people whose values they align with. There was a recent stat about how much more important the brand story is nowadays than it was even 2 years ago in influencing how people buy. We make so many purchasing decisions. 95% of purchasing decisions are based on subconscious connection. Is a study by the Harvard Business School that ran a couple of years ago. And so there's so much data out there about how we buy and why we buy. And a lot of it is based on gut feeling that we then rationalize. And
Right.
so a lot of that gut feeling comes from connecting with that person, with feeling that trust. What is trust? It's feeling at ease. It's feeling like they've got you, feeling like they get you, feeling like they care about you, feeling like that
Hmm.
you're in good hands. There's a form of relief that comes from that. You know, I associate, to me, trust is relief. Trust is you don't have
Yeah.
to worry, you're in good hands. And
Yeah.
so just understand what people love about you. That's a great way to start. If you don't feel like you have a story, just start there.
Hmm.
The second one that you mentioned kind of parallels my documentary that won the Emmy, right? Where I started
Yeah.
with 40 minutes and went down to 10.
Hmm.
That's if you feel like you have a messy story. I mean, there are a couple things you said there. There are people who have a very dramatic story. And what I have found, I didn't even know this when I first started my business, but what I have found working with so many students is that so many times they feel like a certain story is their pivotal sort of most important story of their lives, right? It's like the
Okay.
thing that made them who they are. It was a big marker in their story. And so many times that's not your brand story. That's not the story you should be telling. And the
Hmm.
reason is we have a perception of what made us us and, you know, how fundamental a certain story might be. But it might not be the story that really connects with your audience. At the end of the day, it's about what are the feelings that we want to trigger and which story is going to do that.
Hmm.
And so, for example, I was chatting with a gal whose story started with her. She was a business coach of some sort.
Okay.
And her story was like, oh, yeah, I started my business because my mom died of cancer. And I basically wanted to spend more time. I'm like totally shortening her story, right?
Sure,
But I
sure.
wanted to spend more time with my kids because I saw how short life was. And I'm like, I think that's a great concept and that your audience will resonate with. However, not many people have a parent who died of cancer, right? Or who can relate to such a story that is linked to death.
Hmm.
And it's also, you know, the moment she said that, I thought about a cancer statistic that I had just heard that day. And so that's where my mind went. And so we have to just be careful sometimes with specific details about the story that might take people elsewhere or
Hmm.
that might create a little bit more of a barrier than we want to. And when in fact, we just want to be in close proximity as possible to their experience. And so it's not
Hmm.
obviously creating something out of thin air, but choosing what motivated you about the business that could be very relatable to them, right? If you're speaking to
Hmm.
mostly parents, focus on your kids, focus on the fact that you were missing out on recitals and you were answering emails at dinner time and you were, you know, all of the other parts of her story that were 100% relatable versus this big thing that to her was like the biggest part of the story, but in my view was making the story less relatable.
Hmm.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it's actually, that's like a big mindset shift for me because
Mm,
when I'm thinking about that and thinking about just people I know or, other colleagues, clients, even, mentors who I follow or whatever, there very often are these big like life events that have happened that then become this symbol or this, big content pillar or something where to your point, it's like that's, a chapter of the story or that's part of the story. And of course that was very traumatic or meaningful or amazing or whatever the thing is that you went through, but that doesn't necessarily translate to a lot of people knowing what that felt like or experiencing that or relating relating to that.
mm-hmm.
And so I love how you broke that down of like, that's not necessarily where we want to put our focus.
Right.
That's just like a really great thing for me to think about. So thank you for sharing that. And so when you talk about the process that you go through with your clients, I know as kind of a before step of that, you do have this cheat sheet that you created called Brand Stories That Convert. Can you tell us a little about what is inside that cheat sheet, who it's for? I'm going to put it in the show notes so everyone can grab it. But tell us what that's about.
Yeah, it kind of summarizes what we've been talking about, the different
Okay.
types of stories. It goes through my entire framework. step by step in terms of what you should do first and next and next and next.
Mm-hmm.
It really is kind of a starter guide to
Okay.
get you thinking about your story. And yeah, it's a great place to start for sure. And hopefully, if you were listening to this and not taking furious notes, that will be a good resource for you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. So if someone out there is listening right now and they're going to grab your freebie and hopefully they're going to work with you in the future, but if they want like a quick win right now, maybe something that you can suggest that they try with their About Me page or something that you feel should definitely be on there, maybe.
I think I would reread your About Me page with your audience's eyes for the first time,
Mm,
right? Like really immerse yourself in what's important to them. What's their problem that they're trying to solve with you? What is their frustration? What are their desires? What do they need to feel? What does relief look like for them? And
hmm
just read your About Me page and think like, am I really speaking to them? Or is this just something I wrote about myself because I needed to have an About Me page?
hmm I think that's a great tip because I know for sure there are many folks out there who have never looked at it again once they
Right.
published it 5 or 8 or 10 years ago. So yeah, I love, love, love that advice. So tell us about your launch that's coming up in April.
Yeah.
I would love to hear what you've got going on, who it's for, how can people get involved? Tell me all the things.
For sure. First I'll say that if you do grab the cheat sheet, which is brandmagnetic.com/cheat sheet, I'm sure Alicia will put a link in her show notes.
Yes.
If you do grab that, you will very soon thereafter get a welcome email from me that has my brand video in it in a way that I teach my students to use it. And so
Okay.
I think it's like a really interesting way to see how you might be able to use a brand video or at least like intersperse your brand story.
Okay, cool.
Again, I'm making sure that people watch it right away or as soon as they come in. Like you
Yeah.
said, I'm glad that you are finding it in different places.
Yeah. No, it's
But yeah,
literally it's like show and tell. It's
right.
show and tell.
Hopefully.
You're putting the, like I said, you're walking the walk and you're showing actual examples of you and your business and with your expertise, showing exactly how they can do it. So I love it.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad that's coming through. You never know
Yeah.
like where people are coming in
I
from or
know.
yeah. So
hmm
it really like your brand video should live in all the places to really mark your territory everywhere so that nobody can not see it.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I was gonna say I have like a really awesome success story with my own brand video. I actually hesitated making my own brand video. I had, coaches telling me like, you should make your own. I was like, that sounds terrible. No, I'm just kidding. It actually, no, that's not true. It's kind of like, the cobbler making his own shoes or that sort
Absolutely.
of thing where you're
I
like,
get
I
it.
believe in this so much. I really think everyone will be helped by this. I just don't have time to make my own. It was more around a time thing or not giving myself the time to do it.
Sure.
And then it got to the point, Alicia. So if I'm being super honest, it sounds like like I created the story for show, but it did get to the point where I was starting to see results from my students and my clients, and I'm like, I want that. I'm like, I want this now.
Wait a minute.
And it was really awesome because it came from a place of concrete evidence.
Mm,
I believed in this so much. Obviously, I had sold it and I had helped people with it. But when the results started coming in, I'm like, I absolutely need this in my business. Like, what
yeah.
am I doing? I need to create this thing. And one thing that is really interesting is that it's kind of hard to do it by yourself. The way that I say it is that you can be the best surgeon in the world. You could probably perform surgery on yourself if you really needed to, but it would be hard, right? It's really hard
hmm
to see ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that was also part of my own hesitation where I was like, I was also getting to know my audience better as I grew my business. And so once I had that clarity, it was so much easier to start this process. And I do say that. So when people ask me like, exactly is this for? I say that once you have clarity on who you're serving, what problem you're solving, ideally you have a little bit of momentum in your business where you've had at least a couple clients. That's when you can have a brand video. Before
hmm
that, you need to have that clarity in order to have a brand video that actually works.
That
And
makes
so
sense. Yeah.
for that reason, I think it can help you, but it's almost it's a little bit of putting the cart before the horse. To try to create a brand video, hopefully it works, instead of like doing it right and knowing that it will work. So this is why I created the brand video accelerator, because I knew how helpful it would be to have an expert set of eyes, feedback sessions, help you fine tune your script, give you, just help and assistance as you're filming your brand video on your phone, which is what we do in the program. Everybody learns how to tell their story, learns how to write their script, writes it, gets feedback, and then starts filming their brand video with their phone. And I do all sorts of feedback sessions. So not only does the curriculum kind of really explain in very, very simple ways how to film your brand video creatively. So it's like how to get really creative shots, but very simply to execute. I had to like pare down the curriculum for quite a bit. I think the first time I ran the program, it was a little too high level. It was a little too advanced for folks. And I'm like, you know what? They don't need to know all of this stuff. They need to know these 5 shots and how to execute them really well. And that's it. And you can build a really great brand video with this. It's a lot more about understanding which visuals versus like how to film them technically, right? So the technical part is very, very simple. And the richer part, if you will, is just having ideas or helping. I have like different bots that help you really understand how to tell your story creatively. And so we worked together in 12 weeks and you have your brand video done and edited at the end of those 12 weeks. And it's a forever asset. The way that I say it is, unless you change who you're speaking to, right? In which case those emotional touch points might not work as well. Then you're good to go. Your brand video can work for you for years and years to come.
I love that. I love that they are filming it on their phone. Like that is so accessible and less scary, less like what you were talking about in the beginning about, look, I'm trying to keep costs down, and sure, I might get there in the future and, have my video teams around the world, but like I have a phone in my hand.
Yes,
How
you do.
can you help me get something great? Like I love that approach. And I'm sure that your students absolutely love that too. I also love that you simplified it for them too. Like not only with reducing the tech, but the overall process, the overall
Right. How much do you have to learn to actually execute on this?
I love that. That's great. And you said it's 12 weeks?
12 weeks. Yep.
12 weeks. Okay, cool. Awesome.
We start on May 1st and then
May 1st.
Go until end of July. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. And there's, like you said, there's group feedback and you're getting, people reviewing your stuff and all of that. That's so awesome. Yay.
Yeah, I've had so many students, Alicia, it's funny you were talking about the tech aspect of it. I've had so many students. In fact, I don't know if I've had a single student who hasn't come back with this feedback, which is like people watch it and, there's all sorts of great reactions to it. But then sometimes, or at least one person will ask like, who did you hire to film this?
Sure. Yeah.
They're like, I filmed it myself.
Yeah. That's
so
the best. Really cool. Oh, that's great. That is so great. I love that. Okay, cool. So brand accelerator. I'm putting your socials in the show notes. I'm putting your freebie in the show notes. And like she said, if you sign up for that cheat sheet, she's going to send you a welcome email where you'll be able to learn more about Brand Accelerator and about Mariana.
The Brand Video Accelerator.
Brand Video Accelerator. Sorry. Brand Video Accelerator. So she's going to send you that info. And then you can meet Mariana and learn more about her and all the awesome things that she offers. And you can also find her on Instagram at Brand Magnetic. So be sure to check her out over there. And also, we didn't talk about this. You have a podcast too, right?
I do. It's called Empire Secrets with Mariana Henninger, or Empire Secrets of Digital Marketing, which I added for SEO purposes.
Okay, got it.
But yes, so I talk about all sorts of creative, unheard of, if you will, ways of doing digital marketing, of increasing sales, of reaching the right people, all the digital marketing things, but from an angle that you've never potentially heard of before. So it's like ninja tactics.
Ooh, love it. Okay, awesome. So check out Empire Secrets. And I can't wait for everyone to listen to this whole episode because I just know there are so many nuggets in here, so many amazing tips. And also, like I was saying, like just a new awareness for me of how to think about this kind of stuff, and also understanding like, your story might not be what you think it is, or your
Hmm.
the story that's going to attract people might not be what you think it is.
Yeah.
And so I love, being able to look at it in a different with a different lens. And also just the idea of how to approach visibility in some not so scary ways, because I really believe that you are your brand, and by putting yourself out there, your personality, like, you're going to attract those folks, you're going to have those relatable moments. And I know some people are, a little scary about, or a little scared about that. So I appreciate some of the advice that you shared today on how to break that
Yeah.
down.
I'll say something real
Um,
quick too.
yeah.
I've had very few, but every once in a while I'll have a student that doesn't really like being on camera and is
Mm,
doing it anyway because they believe in it. And I think if you're going to invest time and energy to do one video, this is it.
mm-hmm,
And I have these students who finish their brand video, and this is still their one video where you actually see them in action.
mm-hmm,
The rest of their content is photos or graphics or things like that.
mm-hmm.
But it does such a great job of connecting with people that it doesn't feel like there's this gap in their marketing by not
Yeah.
seeing them all the time. Like,
Yeah.
it really is incredible. It kind of replaces almost like having a coffee chat with your prospect or with the person who wants to connect with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's that sort of feeling that you want to generate with
Yeah.
the single video. And so if being on camera is the thing that you're like, oh, I hate doing, you
Yeah.
can like get over that for at least one video. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? You probably know this.
Absolutely. I think that with everything, the more you do it, the easier it gets. But yes, I basically just ripped the Band-Aid off like
Mm,
maybe 3 years ago or so,
love it.
maybe 4 years ago. I was just like, I don't care. Look, this
Yeah,
is how I am. This is who I am. Like, my office is a mess. Like, my hair, like you said, I need a haircut, like whatever. But I am so excited about the stuff I want to talk to you about and
exactly.
share and teach you
Yes.
and help you with, that I don't really care about the rest of it right now.
Yeah.
So I love, love, love that. So, Mariana, this was such a great conversation. I really, really appreciate you hopping on here today. And I know that you have people thinking now of how they can look at video differently, understand what this brand video can really do for them. I also think a video like this, when you're talking about how it can work for you, for years, and it could be this asset that, like, the ROI is just amazing. Let's also think about what this brand video will eliminate from your process and from your life, such as,
Oh yeah.
if you have this video up there, maybe someone doesn't even need to book a discovery call. Someone doesn't need to do all these extra things because they're just like, yes, this is the person, I'm hiring you. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. I
Yeah.
have case studies like that, Alicia. I have case
Mm,
studies of people who say, we've just eliminated those 5 extra emails back and forth. People come on the call already sold on me. All they need to know is like, how much does it cost and how does it work? Right. They
exactly.
don't need that connection point. There's a quick, do I have time for
Yeah,
one quick
please,
story?
please. Yep.
There's a book called The Visual Sale.
Okay.
And one of the authors of the book talks about how when he used to be a pool salesman, he would knock on people's doors after they had booked a call or or scheduled a meeting, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
he'd show up at their door, and inevitably a kid would open up the door and go like, "Mom, Dad, the pool guy's here," which was kind of announcing like Santa's here, like everyone, all kids are excited about a
Sure.
pool. He then discovered that by sending them a video of himself, which to me is like, oh, that's probably kind of like a brand video, or has the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
Execution, I have no idea what it looks like, but
Mm-hmm.
he sent a video about himself, and people would now open the door and be like, oh, it's Andrew from the video.
Hmm.
Right. And so he went from just being the pool guy who was going to
Right.
sit down and have to like sell them on everything and like, typical sales call,
Mm-hmm.
to being Andrew, who they had already built trust with and they had already felt comfortable with. And
Mm-hmm.
so sure enough, he was closing a lot more sales by sending them this video that warmed them up. So
Mm-hmm.
Robert Cialdini is a fantastic author who talks so much about like priming your audience. The importance of what you say before you say it is so much
Yep.
more important than what you say. And
Yep.
so when your audience is primed when they're sold on you, you can sell them on anything.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to use the word primed. Like you're watching this video and you're already primed to pull out your credit card,
Yeah,
to send that email. The work is already done. The hard part's already done.
totally.
So I love that. I love, love, love that. Mariana, this was so helpful, seriously, and just such a great conversation. You're so talented. I love chatting with you. And I love nerding out about all of this stuff too. So I'm so excited for your launch. Good luck. Keep us posted on everything. And again, everybody, head to the show notes to grab her cheat sheet, the brand stories that convert cheat sheet. And again, you can find Mariana on brandmagnetic.com or on Instagram at brandmagnetic and check out her podcast,
Yay.
Empire Secrets. Yay! Thank you so much again, Mariana. This was great.
Thank you, Alicia. Take care.
I'll talk to you soon.